Hey everyone, this is Chris and Sandy Bent with the Chris and Sandy Show. We get up close and personal with some amazing guests throughout the entertainment industry. And today, like I say in every episode, we've got a great one for you. Who do we have?
We have Lisa Michelle Cornelius with us today. She is an actress, singer, and filmmaker based in Toronto, Canada. She has appeared in The Handmaid's Tale, American Gothic, Black Mirror, 12 Monkeys, Chucky, A Christmas Carousel, and Color of Love. And she will be starring in her first leading role in the new feature film, A Sisterly Christmas, coming to the OWN network on December 7th.
And we're excited to talk about that and more.
And a lot more.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So I like to start the show out kind of the same way. This last 18 months has been really tough for a lot of people. Yes. And you being in Canada, the lockdowns there have been worse than the US.
Yes.
But it's been tough for a lot of people. So how has COVID affected what you do? And what have you done to maneuver through it?
Oh man, it's affected everything, much like it has for a lot of people. The lockdowns were really tough, but honestly, I was really, really grateful for my family. I have a large extended family. I have like tons of siblings and cousins and all that, but especially my immediate family when I couldn't even see those people. Like, it was my husband and I have a 6-year-old daughter. Like I really, with all the time spent at home, forced to stay at home, I felt my heart went out for people who were alone because it would have been that much more difficult. But I was really grateful that I had family with me to keep me entertained, loved, comfortable, just keep going, optimistic. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to, when you're fulfilled in that way with family and like love, like I like to think I never took it for granted before, but now I really, really don't take it for granted. And I said this in an interview I did recently, but it's true. Like you heard so many couples who like didn't make it throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, we heard a lot of those stories.
Right? Yeah. And I don't know if like half of them were, it seemed like it was just like an ongoing joke, but then people started throwing out stats of like actual marriages that dissolved because it was really tough. And
a lot of celebrity ones.
Yeah. I'm really grateful that was not the case. Me and my husband make jokes all the time. We're like, after this time, we're like, I still like you. I still like you.
What's been funny about us is, we've been a 24/7 couple for 19 years of our marriage.
Yeah.
And so many people have told us how wrong we are, how unhealthy we are, how dependent on each other we are. We've heard it all.
We've heard it all.
Every year we hear that. And we homeschool our 9-year-old, and of course that's wrong. And then all of a sudden, when COVID happens, everybody had to live our life. We're sitting here, we're like, oh, look,
nothing's changed for you all. That's amazing. No, hats off to you for homeschooling, because for a lot of this, I didn't have to homeschool because my daughter's school was still open, if you will, she had online schooling, but that's a whole other can of worms. That was really difficult. You spend your whole time trying to keep them off of screens or on screens less than they're not on screens. And then it's like, actually, school is on screen for 8 hours today and stuff like that. So that was challenging, especially because she's so young. Like kindergarten, it's all about playing, being fun.
And screen time's going to be tough from this point on, because everything you do, like you said, you apply for jobs online. Everything you do is online.
What we're doing right now.
You try to teach that you don't need to be online that much, but yet their whole life is going to be online.
100%. So you want to make sure like they're savvy enough with it, because you don't want them to like be behind the rest of their peers. But at the same time, you're like, this is a tree, this is a grass. So no, hats off to you for homeschooling, because with my daughter being home and doing online learning, that was challenging. Like I said, because she's little, she doesn't want to sit in one place for like a super long time. But it did allow us to get a closer inside look, since I don't homeschool normally, look on like exactly what they are learning at school and exactly what they are doing, and just hearing them interact with their friends and all that stuff. It was nice to get a closer look and a longer look and more time with my daughter all day. And in that time, my husband taught my daughter to ride a 2-wheeler like super quickly, things like that, because we had more time. So to say that there wasn't challenges would be false. like I said, I have a big extended family as well. So it was hard not seeing them, because normally
yes.
I'm a huge family person. I have 5 older brothers and sisters, 14 and counting nieces and nephews, and
Oh, wow.
everyone lives relatively close. So we're used to being like, it's Tuesday, let's have dinner together, like and things like that. So
and then that changed.
Yeah, and that changed, and then my family got really small, but all that said, I've been coping because I've had enough. I'm privileged, and I've had enough to keep me comfortable and safe and loved, so I'm grateful.
Yeah, that's like with us. We launched this show January of 2020, so a couple months before COVID. And our original plan was maybe 100 interviews our first year. We thought if we could do that, be a great foundation. And then COVID happens, and I'm watching everything get shut down. I told Sandy, I was like, this could be our time to shine, because all the actors and artists and all that, they have time. People for a new show, and all that. So we reached out to anybody and everybody last year. And because of that, we did over 300 interviews last year, and we're almost 500 now.
Woo! And that's great. And see, that's an example of how, yes, there's been a lot of challenges with the pandemic, but in some areas have been able to flourish. It's not all.
And you got to just, again, what we realized was, we can't change COVID.
We had to make the best of
the
situation.
So what can we do to kind of make our mark through it?
Totally. And even opportunities like I auditioned for and shot A Sisterly Christmas during this pandemic. And I'm in Toronto. It's not to say that, there's lots of Torontonians who audition for American films and make a whole living doing Hollywood films. But that being said, I think it's more frequent now because the world of auditioning is pretty much 100% self-tapes. So it opens up the opportunities to audition for things all over the globe now more often.
It's one of them double-edged swords a little bit, like especially for people who live in LA, because people who lived in LA, you competed with other people in LA. Well, now you're competing with the world, because
now you're competing against Lisa Michelle. You've got to step your game up. That's all.
That's it.
So tell us about your newest movie coming out.
Yes, A Sisterly Christmas.
Yes, so it comes out tomorrow, Tuesday, December 9th. Tomorrow's the 9th? No, 7th. Tuesday, December 7th at 9 p.m. That's what I was confusing. And it's on the OWN network. And it's a Christmas movie, so it's got all the things that you hope for in a Christmas movie. There's a little bit of romance, there's a little bit of family drama, there's humor, all that stuff. But what I think makes our film unique is that it's heavy on the family portion of it, whereas like a lot of Christmas movies, it's like, boy meets girl, and like and then the whole journey is that, which nothing wrong with that. I love me a good Christmas movie. But ours is A Sisterly Christmas. So it's about my character, Vicky Marshall, and Christina Marshall, played by Deborah Joy Winans, who I was a huge fan of before even getting to do this project. So that was really cool. And it's about these two sisters who were estranged since their mother passed when they were younger. And ever since, they just never really connected the same. They never got along. My character's like super flamboyantly into Christmas. She's all like into it. She's kind of.
Is that you in real life?
That is. It wasn't a difficult role to play, I'll say, because Vicky's like extra. She likes to make jokes. She likes to be loud. She likes to be a big presence in every room. And I can't say that I don't love all of those things. I think Vicky, though, she was kind of using some of that and her love for Christmas and her love for packing her schedule with activities to kind of cover up the grief of her mother. So even though she blames her sister Christina for being like a curmudgeon, a Christmas Scrooge kind of thing, that was just her sister's way of dealing with the grief. Like,
because people deal with grief different ways.
Everyone handles it differently,
especially when it comes to the holidays. And our character's mother, who had passed, she was really into Christmas. So of course the holidays tend to attach a lot of emotions around positivity and around the things that you miss and the people that you miss. So my sister, or my version of the sister, Vicky Marshall, she covered all that up with as much Christmas and fun and joy as she can. And the two sisters are forced to come together via their aunt, who sends them on a holiday resort trip. You guys are going to get along. Go on this trip. I'm paying for it. You can't say no. So
Okay.
we begrudgingly go, and a lot of hijinks happen along the way.
And I'm glad with movies like that because again, what we're talking about, that people grieve different, and you watch people on Facebook and you almost cringe because you see some people will say, well, I didn't act that way, and they don't get it. They're not the same. They didn't grow up the same way. They didn't have. I mean, and even if you did grow, I mean, you could have the exact same backgrounds, the same growing up, the same family, and you're still going to be grieve different.
100%. Like we all have the same body parts, but our hearts are still different. Like our hearts are still different. How things affect you, and that is clearly the case with these sisters. And that's something else I love about this movie, is that it's a Christmas movie, and of course it's lighthearted to a degree, but it deals with like real emotional issues, like how these two sisters grieve differently, how that put them at odds, where their relationship is now. So there's a bit of like relatability as well as all the Christmas movie fun.
That's the best kind too, because like we had I remember Michael Jr. come on to Christian comedian, and he came on the show and he talks about that he uses comedy to bring up serious topics, so make people laugh so they can let their guard come down.
I think, well, for me, I feel like that's one of the best ways to deal with it. I mean, to a degree, it can go all the way so far that you're like covering up your emotions and not dealing with them. But sometimes it can be an effective way of dealing with it. You know what I mean? And it's a nice, soft way.
What I'm saying is he uses it out there so that, he makes people laugh. At serious things to make them think about the serious things.
Right.
But and people are more willing to receive it.
That's right. People are more willing to receive it because they don't feel attacked. They don't feel like you're cornering them with that serious information. You're just, here it is. But there's not, like you said, there's nothing we can do about COVID. There's nothing we can do about a lot of things. So you might as well just navigate through life, find a way through it, find a way to laugh, find joy.
Oh, yes.
So what do you think about being on the OWN network?
Okay, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't super excited. Super excited because it's the OWN network, but it's also the Oprah Winfrey network. She's just a little bit famous, right?
Just a little bit.
So having any degree of connection to Oprah Winfrey is super exciting. Doubly exciting, like I said, just being from Toronto. Like I'm not even Hollywood yet. So it's just exciting to have had the opportunity
there eventually. Yeah.
I hope so. Even just having the opportunity to perform and audition for this project, much less be a part of it, and have such a good time at it. Like Deborah Joy was, like I said, I was a fan of hers before. She's the star of another hit OWN network show, Greenleaf. And she was fantastic. Like I really feel like we did make a sisterly connection during that time. Like being the two leads of it, we spent a lot of time together, many hours, and even in the in-between hours, like we spent some off hours together. I celebrated my birthday over that time, and Deborah and Kiana, who plays our nemesis and our DP and stuff, they had a little celebration for me, just a mini one because it was COVID, we couldn't do much, but so yeah, I felt like it was the OWN network, so that was something to celebrate. It was also a good time. That was something to celebrate. It was great people. It was just, I'm really, really grateful for the whole experience. It was, I hope all of that joy and positivity and like all the good vibes that I was feeling, I hope that translates on screen.
So as you know, a lot of people, they see the glory in what you do, but they don't see the grind, the sacrifice, the tears, the struggles that it takes not just to get to the big level, but even a career level within entertainment. And I always want to talk about that side of it because I think a lot of people sugarcoat this. They believe if I got the talent, I'll make it. I'm good. But it's a lot more than just talent. It's it's network, talent, a little bit of luck, and everything in between. And so let's talk about what you've had to go through and some of the struggles and sacrifices you've made even to get to where you are today.
I'd say it's a sport of tenacity, perseverance, patience, grace with yourself, and also building like community. Like I always say or joke that if I ever win an Emmy or an Oscar, any of those big awards, I'm like, I have to thank my husband first, because you know, for a lot of the time, many years, he was supporting us all, because being an actor is precarious work. Like, you know, you get lucky, and when you get lucky, you get lucky. I mean, it pays really well when you get the work. But then,
But it's
you know,
so few in between.
then the pendulum swings, and then you're auditioning, which is fun. It's still acting. It's still part of the job.
So
but
you got to make that money last.
That's right. You got to make it last. It's just, it swings back. The pendulum swings. So you have to have tenacity and belief in yourself. And I know belief in yourself sounds so cliche, and I didn't understand it until I got to where I am now. And I'm like, I get it, because so many people will doubt you, and not out of maliciousness, but just because there are a lot of talented people out there, and you know, everybody can't be a fan of everybody can't support everyone. An agent can only take so many clients. So if you don't believe in yourself enough to be like, no, I really can do
100% of the people can't win.
100% of people can't win. So you have to believe in yourself, that be like, no, I am going to win and you're going to believe me. And I've used that tenacity to get with signed to agents that at the time maybe I wasn't at the level I should have been, but I knew I could do it. And I love giving this example because it sounds like a story, but it's a true story, in that the agent I had before the one I currently have, they're like one of the biggest in Toronto, and I got started in this career as a professional later in life. Even though I was acting since I was a mid-teen, I wasn't a professional until like mid-20s, maybe close to 30, which is like super old apparently. And I remember writing a letter, email and a cover letter to the agency that I wanted, who was like the top one in Toronto. I didn't deserve to be there, every year for 8 years, and they just went unanswered every single year. And I wouldn't be bitter in the email. I wouldn't say, well, this is the third time I'm writing you. Like, I didn't come with any ego. I always just told them what I was up to. Well, now, you know, I got myself cast in this commercial without representation. So what more could I do with a great partnership? And I was persistent, and kind every time. And until finally, she probably got tired of filling her inbox. She came and saw me to audition, and I auditioned for her in our office. And then she still had excuses. She's like, well, you know, your audition was good, but like, you know, I already have people your age, or I already have people who look like you. And I'm like, what they don't have is my inexperience is actually an advantage. The fact that I haven't been seen by every casting director repeatedly in the city is to your advantage. I go, everybody you have on your roster who's more experienced than me, hats off to them. They're not new anymore. And I go, you're going to get a fresh face who's now eager. I'm not jaded. I haven't been doing it long enough to be jaded. And so I have all this energy. So
you really sold yourself.
I wore her down. And I got in that agency under, like I said, she's probably just like, oh, just fine here. Because I pointed out that it doesn't cost you anything to represent me. Like, you know, like just do it. So she did. And God was with me. I booked the very first job she sent me out on. And it turned out to be a job that kept paying. It was I was a musical, Godspell. And so I did the musical. It was like 6 weeks in like a small town in Ontario. So about 2 hours from home or so. But then that turned into, they rebooked me for, that same production company booked me for an extended tour, and it ended up being a US national tour. And then so it ended up being this one job turned into like 6 months of work and commission for that agency. I got to tour with the first US national Broadway cast. And I'm like, if I let the 8 years of no's, not even no's, I didn't even get a no. She didn't even respond to me. If I let that be like, well, I probably shouldn't aim this high because I'm not really ready. And truth be told, maybe the first year I wasn't ready. So my path was to apply for 8 years. Maybe that's what I was supposed to do. And that's what I did, kind of thing. So by the time she saw me, I really was ready. But that whole time, what I had was belief in myself that whenever she accepts my plea to come and audition for her, I'm gonna kill it and she's gonna accept me. So belief in myself has really worked.
And we get exactly what you're saying, because you know, with our show, you know, we're still a new show. We're less than 2 years old. We have no backing, and we're not part of iHeartRadio. We're all grassroots. And I remember, and I'm aggressive when I'm trying to get people on the show.
Yeah,
And I will every month I will email their PR people. Can they do it now? Can they do it now? Can they do it now? And
he's worn some of
and
them
I think
down,
I've worn quite a bit of people out, including
okay, we'll put him on the show.
remember we got Scotty McQuarrie not too long ago, and I remember I think I just wore him out. Maybe, I don't know. I've never asked.
Probably.
But the manager finally says, "Look, even if I could give you some time, I can't give you 45 minutes. That's what I I quit asking for time now because I learned that that's burned me in the past. So I just say to pitch people to come on, and then we can discuss how long, I learned that lesson. But, and he was like, the most I could get, he said, Scotty, don't do big interviews, 5 to 10 minutes. And so I emailed back, said, I can do 10 minutes. I didn't even hear the 5. I heard the 10.
Yeah, you go for the highest one.
And we got it and all that. But again, it was one of the moments where, and we've had several moments where I think I just wore the people out and they're like, okay, let's just get them on there.
And I think as long as you do it with kindness, no one ever has a bad thing to say. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like I said, in emailing that agent for every year, I was never, this is the 5th time I'm writing you kind of thing. Cause that, you catch more flies with honey. I was always sweet, kind, factual. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I want. But the persistence does, as they say, water can wear down a rock. It takes many years, but it happens. And that's what I think you really need, but you have to be willing to be that water and willing to put in that time. And when a lot of people say or ask, just as you have, how would I say that, or how did I get where I am now? How did I find the amount of success that I have now? And hopefully there's a lot more to come, but how did I even get here? It's the tenacity and like the perseverance in that the older I get, of course, the better actor I become because I have more life experiences. Like I've experienced more of everything the more time goes by, but also the longer I've outlasted peers. It's not that I'm the most talented, but there's a lot of people who used to be my competition who either had to go this way or that way or pivoted into another career or just didn't want to hack it anymore. So the longer you stay with something,
everybody falls out.
Everybody else falls out or like more and more people fall out. And I don't hope that for my peers, but it's just what happens. The longer you stay in it.
You have to outlast everybody.
You just outlast.
And I got a great analogy for that I love to always tell when this comes up. It's like I remember the story of 2 guys in the woods and a bear pops up and a guy jumps down and he's tying his shoes tight. And the other guy is like, what are you doing? You can't outrun that bear. He goes, I don't have to. I just got to outrun you.
Exactly.
And ain't that kind of how it is? I mean, you just gotta outrun. Like I remember Will Smith saying one time.
I know what quote you're gonna say, but I want to hear you say it. I love this.
But where he talks about being on a treadmill. Yes. And where he says that if we're competing, I will die before I quit. Yeah. He says I will out. He says I was never the best. At acting, the best at singing, the best at rapping. He says, but I will outwork you.
100. And that is all it takes. That right there is all it takes. If you're willing to outwork someone, it doesn't matter what they've got. Like they don't have anything over working hard. Like that's really what it is. And his quote, I remember that distinctly. That's one of my favorite quotes of his. He's just like, you might be faster than me, taller, stronger, more talented. He's like, but if the 2 of us are on a treadmill, one of 2 things is going to happen. He's like, either I'm going to win or I'm going to die trying, but I'm not getting off that treadmill.
I've heard that quote so many times of his clips, and I'm always like, wow, every time I hear that, because it's so true. You have, if you don't believe at that level, you might as well get out of entertainment.
Well, totally. And I mean, it's not that I always believe that we're meant to be one path, because like I said, some people have fallen off this path, not because they weren't good enough, but maybe life just turned you a different way and you were supposed to go down another path, and that's okay too. Exactly. But just being open to that and knowing knowing what your purpose is, then you should stick with that. Because I have thought many a time, maybe wanted to think that maybe I shouldn't be an actor. Maybe I've done this long enough. I have quit about 88 times like before. So as much as I talk about tenacity doesn't mean you never have quit, because I certainly have, at least in my mind, that like,
I'm lucky I have her, because so many times I'm on that cliff where I'm like, I don't feel like our show's going where it needs to go yet.
Yes.
I mean, we're getting great guests, but it's just, I'm still want to go to that next level. Yes. And sometimes I'm like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to work. It's not this. It's not that. I'm in my little pity party, and she has to pull me off that cliff.
That when I was saying about community, I also really mean with that, like family, because that's who you have been to Chris. Sandy is how my husband has been for me, and he's not even an actor, so he's not in this with me intimately. But so many times, like I've stopped quitting now in recent years, but I used to quit all the time, and he would always take me off that ledge and be like, Lisa, let's be real. Like, this is all you want to do. You are not happy doing anything else. Like, you've tried it. Like, the benefit of me starting late as a professional actor.
You tried a lot of stuff.
Is that I've done a lot of things already. Like, I don't have in the back of my mind, oh, what if I tried the corporate route? Like, maybe I would have liked that. Maybe I would have, because I tried it and I don't.
I know. That's not
like, I've done that. I've worked probably everywhere you can think of. So I've run the gamut of things, and this is one of the only things that, no matter when I try to shove it in the back, or put it aside and be like, I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to get benefits like my accountant and nurse friends. Like I want to get paid every 2 weeks. Like I just want to be a normal person. Like being an artist is too hard. I've tried to pray away the desire to be creative, and God himself was like, like this is what you're supposed to do. And so then once I finally came to grips with that, like being performing is not what I do, that like it's such a huge part of who I am. Like being an artist is not what I do. Like it's very much a part of who I am. And then I started to take pride in that, as opposed to being like, this is hard. I'm like, what am I saying? It's hard to be me, because this is what this is what it is. This is what it is. Like, not to say I can't do other things. I already have other ventures and things going on, but this is a part of me that will never leave. And once I accepted that, I was able to just move forward a little more smoothly, still with some doubts. And, I have, I'm an actor. We're all a little self-conscious or lack self-confidence here and there, especially when you don't get that gig where you're like, I really nailed that audition. Did they watch it?
You ever have a gig that you got where you felt like you nailed it, and then you watched a show or movie and you're like, okay, I get why I didn't get it?
You know what? No, I'd say what I have experienced was auditioning for something, being like, oh, I really wanted that, and watching it and be like, I could have totally done that better.
Oh, wow.
That's more often.
Yes.
Call it what you will, actor's vanity, but I more often feel like that, where I'm like, oh, come on, like, or not that I felt like I was better than that person, but I felt like, I could have done that. But sometimes what I've noticed as well is that when I've watched something, you realize that, oh, it had nothing to do with me, because both me and that performer were talented, but they looked more like the mother of that child who they cast. And that's something I learned a lot as well. Like, if you're auditioning for, at least in my experience, maybe some producer or casting director is going to say that this is incorrect, but in my experience, children are harder to cast because obviously there's less of them performing at a professional level. Right. So if they've already got a child cast and you're auditioning, you better hope you look like that child's parent, or like you at least fall into like the racial realism of being that parent. Otherwise, the likelihood of you getting that role is slim, because it's easier to find another person who fits my physical description at this age than it is to find another incredible child actor who's like 6 years old, who can nail this part, memorize the lines. Like, it's harder to cast them. So sometimes as an actor, like, we think all kinds of things about ourselves. We get all these negative thoughts about why you didn't get a role. And sometimes it's like, oh, you're too tall, or you didn't look like the rest of the family, or whatever reason, or, you know what I mean? Like little things that really didn't have anything to do with our ability per se.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the longer I do this, I'm learning slowly not to take things personally. And most of the time, 99% of the time, I don't. I only feel a ways I will if I audition for something and they keep calling you back and back and back, and then you don't get it, then it's like heartbreak. It's like, but why? Why did you call me back so many times? That's really hard part.
Love that. Now, as you know, a lot of people, they see you and they see the other actors and artists and all that, but they don't see the teams behind y'all. In our opinion, the teams never get the love they deserve. On our show, they do. So take a few moments to tell us about the team that helps you be who you are.
Oh, I love that. No one ever asks that or even brings that up. You know, and then I'm going to shout out my current agent, who's not the one I wrote for 8 years. My current agent as Alex Kasman at Fountainhead Talent. And she's incredible in that I've never had an agent-actor relationship in that if she has a question about how I feel about a part before submitting me, like she will ask me about it, especially, you know, given the current climate and like everyone being more socially conscious, which I appreciate her, you know, as a white Jewish woman, like she takes in consideration some roles that like when they come through that like, ooh, maybe you don't want to play this, but you know, I'm going to present it to you anyways, because I don't know, maybe it's not. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm like, no, I think that's funny. Like, I'll do it, like whatever. And then it's no big deal. And then other times I'm like, you're right. This is kind of weird or whatever. But I've never had an agent care enough to like bother like asking.
Oh, wow.
Not to say that I've had like mean agents. I've always had people that were respectful, of course, but that wouldn't, that I remember, for instance, you know, I've had experiences in the past where I would get a role, a breakdown for an audition, and I used to feel like I couldn't say no to an audition. Like I felt like as an actor, because we're not constantly working 365 days a year, it's a privilege. It really is to get an audition, because even to get the audition, they had to look through a number of headshots and resumes, blah, blah, blah. So I used to feel like I had to say yes. And I remember having in the past an experience of feeling like I couldn't say no to auditions, even if they felt really awkward or offensive or whatever. And I remember writing my agent at the time, a previous person, like a big long letter and like really delicately, like, I'm really sorry, I'm not trying to waste anybody's time, but I really don't want to do this because of X, Y, and Z. And she just wrote back, okay. Like,
then you
like,
learn. Huh?
I was like, okay, I'm like, so you don't want to have a conversation about this? I'm like, whatever. But anyway, bring it back forward and positive. My current agent really, really cares about everything. And when I book a role, she FaceTimes me. Like nobody FaceTimes. Like she FaceTimes because like she wants to give me the good news, like and see my reaction. And she celebrates with me. She's as excited for me as I am when I book a role. Like I swear she's as excited as I am. And she's just really like a real, like what you would want in a in somebody who's representing you in that way. Like she's a legit like fan of me, but not in a follower type of way, but she's a fan of my work and like what I can do, and projects that to people when casting and things like that when she's putting me forward for work. So if you're watching this, Alex, I really appreciate you. Also my PR person, Newly, who you've been in contact with, Amira Devira.
Great.
My first ever PR representative. I've never been at the level where I've needed one. Like this is not the first interview I had, but normally I could manage the amount of interview requests and stuff on my own. But with A Sisterly Christmas being on OWN, like there's a lot of wonderful moments around that, which is great. So Amira's fantastic and has been connecting me with great shows like yourself, great magazines and all over that I wouldn't have contact with directly because, as you know, I'm Canadian, so she's put me in contact with a lot of media, like in the US and stuff, and also just great to work with. I'm a fan of kind people. I'm always about kind people over talented people any day. I feel like because you can teach anybody anything, you can navigate relationships or like a working relationship any which way, but if I can love you, we're going to be professional. I know that's not professional, but like I can't work with people that I couldn't love. That kind of thing. And
I really get that.
Yeah, like it just, especially doing what I do, it can be so emotional. It can be so sensitive.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's such a roller coaster. And you have to have, well, I have to have, maybe not everybody needs this, but I like to have a team that doesn't have to get emotional with me, but at least they understand it. They understand why, like, I might be frustrated at like not
Mhm.
booking for this amount of time, or why I want to turn down that audition, or why I really want that audition, or things like that. So I'm grateful that I have a team that is willing to at least hear me out, acknowledge who I am, my feelings, my wants, cares about my
And of course, your
goals.
husband.
My husband, top of the list. He's super great. I would have probably given up a while ago. And honestly, like there's so many ways I could thank him financially, like just emotional support. And I think it's
Mhm.
extra funny. I saw an SNL skit a while back. Even after this interview, if I find it, I have to send it to you. It's so funny. An SNL sketch that came out years ago with a performer who was married to a non-performer, and it was almost like an ode to people who are married to performers, because we're
Oh,
all
wow.
a little cuckoo for
Mhm.
sure, and just all the things that they have to go through, especially during this pandemic. My husband had to be my scene partner because we're no longer going into audition rooms, so everything is a self-tape. And when we were on heavy lockdowns and I couldn't even go to self-tape studios or work with other actors, everything was at home. And so
So your
it's like
husband became that.
my husband became an actor, and he has zero desire to be an actor,
Wow.
like zero desire to be an actor. But I always joke that after almost 2 years of being my reader, I'm like, you've gotten to be a better actor. Like you're a legit scene partner now. He's like, no thanks. Like he can't wait for things to change a little bit more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, no, I have a great deal of supportive people. Oh,
One
and
day
one last
something may pull him into a scene where he can't say no.
yeah,
That's
exactly. And one more set of people I have to say thank you to, since we're
Mhm.
acknowledging teams, even though I'm a grown woman and I don't live with my parents. My dad passed away in 2014, but my mom is still
Wow.
around. But
Sorry for the life loss.
my thank you. My parents were always supportive, and that, like, of me being an artist, always, always, always. And that is not common for a lot of parents in
Oh, yeah.
general, but in particular, not usually a lot of immigrant parents. Like my parents are Jamaican, and usually, or I shouldn't say usually, I don't know every immigrant parent, but a lot of my peers who have immigrant parents, they're like, I didn't make all the sacrifices I made to come to this country for you to act, like for you to play for a living kind of thing. But I'm really thankful that there hasn't been a single
Wow.
second in my entire life that my parents ever made me feel that way. Not even one time. My dad put me in
I wish
dance
other
lessons.
parents would understand that.
Yeah, and I mean, because I was my only detractor. It was never my parents. It was never my siblings. Like everyone always thought, like, oh yeah, like for sure, she's gonna do this, like, because they saw that I was a creative person. They were just like, they didn't really understand it, mind you, but they're like, sure, go do whatever. My dad's only stipulation was that, like, you have to go to college. I don't care what it's for, but like, it's not you're not gonna be one of those kids who, I'm going to take the year off and tour Europe. He's like, none of that. Like, you're going to school. That was my only requirement, is I had to go to school. But other than that, like I always had, or I never had any detractors behind me. It was always, if anybody thought I couldn't do it, it was just me sometimes that would make me feel that way. And I can't imagine how much harder, because it already is hard enough to build that belief in yourself. I can't imagine how much harder it might be with people around you trying to get you not to do it. But yeah, I've always had just a consistent set of supporters in my family, outside of my friends, like everything. Everyone knew I could do it, even when I didn't think I could.
That is awesome. Now, speaking of teams and family, we have a third co-host, our 9-year-old, that we always bring on.
Nice.
So Sandy's going to go get him.
I'll get him.
Nice.
And we got a 2.5-year-old daughter that when she gets, I keep saying 2.5, but she's about to be 3 in February 27th. So a few more months, she'll be 3. But when she gets a little older, she'll be plugged into the show too, because we are a family affair.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. When you said, speaking of family and teams, I thought you were going to bring out one of my family members. It's like, how'd you swing that?
That would have been cool.
I was like, you are good. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, Lisa. What's your favorite food?
Pardon?
What's your favorite food?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Favorite food.
Oh, my favorite food. I'm sorry. My favorite food? Probably spaghetti. Probably spaghetti with a good meat sauce. My husband makes the best. What's your favorite food?
Mine's pizza.
Pizza, universal. Okay, what's your favorite thing to put on the pizza? Because not everybody likes the same toppings.
Pepperoni, sausage, and supreme.
He's got 3 faves.
Ooh, pepperoni and supreme. Yum.
Yeah.
I actually made my own pizza for the first time the other day. I bought pizza dough, so I didn't really make it from scratch, but it was close.
Oh, wow.
And it was really good. What's your name? I didn't catch your name.
Oh, mine is Christopher.
Christopher. Nice to meet you.
All right. So, what's your favorite TV show?
Ooh, there's so many good TV shows. I like when The Big Bang Theory was out. I was a big fan of The Big Bang Theory. Like
love that one.
Millions of people. That was one of my favorites. I like some kind of creepy Netflix shows. There's one called The Ozark, which is pretty intense, and I like that one. That was pretty good too.
And what's yours?
My SpongeBob.
SpongeBob. My daughter had a huge SpongeBob hamper just recently, but she's had it for so many years that we had to toss it. Got it.
What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie other than A Sisterly Christmas? I really like I, Robot. Have you seen that one with Will Smith?
No.
It's
He would
pretty
like
good.
that.
Yeah, have you seen it?
I have.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
The scary part is with the whole AI stuff now, you can, I read an article that it's an organism, but they have found a way for a robot to create a robot. And I'm sitting there like, okay, we're about to get into iRobot in the next 10 years.
This is why I have been such a huge fan of the movie. And like people always laugh at me when I say it's my favorite movie because it's not one of like the classics that everyone has as their favorites. But I like it for that reason where I'm like, there's a lot of truth in here that people are not seeing. I feel like it's foreshadowing.
By the time they see it, it's going to be too late because if we get there, we're in trouble.
Oh yeah. I think we're there. I think we're there.
I watched a thing with Elon Musk the other day. It was sometime this year. I'm not sure when it was recorded, but somebody was asking him about AI and all that, and he says normally the government is late to things. People have to die, then the government will make regulations and change it. Right. He says government can't do that here. He says if the government's late here, our world is in trouble.
So what kind of action is he calling for?
He said we got to slow it down. He said if we don't slow it down, there won't be civilization 10, 15 years from now.
Why? Isn't he part of the problem though? I don't know. I think he's part of the ones creating it, but that was what I thought.
It'll be interesting the next 15, 20 years, I'll tell you. AI, like even Stephen Hawking, I remember before he died, somebody asked him about AI. What do you think of AI? He says, I don't know. He said AI will either be the best thing that the world has ever created, or it will destroy the world. One or the other. He said that will be the only two paths depending on the regulations that follow. Right. Wow.
So, and like you said, if it's too late, like you can't even enforce regulations once
it gets out there. So it's one of the moments where governments better get their butts in order, or we all may be in trouble. I mean, hopefully we're not, but we just who knows.
And what's funny is the main system in iRobot that was controlling everything and was trying to bring down the demise of the world unknowingly was named Vicky. And that's my character in Sisterly Christmas.
The ironicness of that.
The irony.
Hey, am I supposed to say mine? Or is mine is the Minions movie.
Minions? Which one? I think there's 3.
All of them.
All of them. I like the music in Minions. I love the soundtrack. The songs are good.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, he loves to be part of the show.
Why not?
Done almost 500 interviews, and he's been on pretty much. I mean, there's only been a few where like the guests, because we always have him close to the end. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the guest might be like in the middle, and I didn't, I'm thinking we're going 45 minutes or so, and all of a sudden the guest at the 30-minute mark says, I'm sorry, but I got to go.
Oh no!
So every now and then he's not on, but for the most part he is,
and he loves it.
Fair. Well, my wonderful PR person, Amira, did let me know that you would need about an hour, so I came prepared. I came prepared.
Good to know. All right. What are some sources of inspiration for you?
Sources of inspiration. My daughter for sure. Like I mentioned, she's 6 and she's whip smart and full of personality. She's super hilarious and brings me right back down to earth if I ever get too distracted or, full of what I'm doing and get down the tunnel of working too hard. She'll bring it right back. Yeah. So she definitely inspires me to be present when I'm not. Definitely spirituality for sure. I grew up Christian, but I feel like I embrace a plethora of spiritual concepts. I just think it's, for me, it helps my mental health to like meditate and pray and just like I love my solitude. As much as I'm grateful, I'm super grateful for my family. Sometimes I'm like, all right, going in this room for 30 minutes, nobody even knock on the door. Like,
I get that one.
Right. And sometimes I'm not.
Because she's in the bathroom and the Caitlin has to go in there too.
Oh, yes. Always got a shadow with me. Yep.
Oh, of course. Oh, because that's the 2.5-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, forget about it for another 5 years. You're not going to be alone.
Oh, yeah.
You know that already.
It's funny. So follow her, but if there's something that's got to be done, she wants me to do it, not her.
Oh, like yesterday, Christopher asked, who's your favorite parent? Is it mommy or daddy? She'll pick daddy every time. So that's always daddy.
That's funny. That's my daughter as well. She's a daddy's girl through and through. She's like, if we're out at a restaurant, there's a bunch of people, she wants to sit beside daddy. She wants to, she's definitely daddy's girl for sure. I'm only now getting over it. I'm like, fine. I just carried you. No big deal. It's fine.
Yes.
No big deal. Sources of motivation. So what did I say so far? Solitude and spirituality, which I consider one sort of thing.
They go together,
Yeah, my daughter and maybe it sounds funny, but food. I like cooking it. I like eating it.
Yes, that's a good
but
one
like,
too. Yes.
Sometimes I just need a break. Like if I'm studying a script or even just focusing on any kind of work, because there's a lot of admin portions of my work as well. Taking a nice break and like actually preparing like a full meal of something. That sometimes it's just creative enough, but also separate from working. That feels good. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what would you like for your legacy to be as an actress? What would you like to be most known and remembered for?
Oh, I'd like to think that I open doors for other performers who look like me. So here in, I feel like honestly,
So you want to be Oprah?
Well, oh wow, yeah.
Right.
Well,
I mean, she's opened doors. I mean, she's really opened a lot of doors.
She has.
That is so true, so smart. I would 100% agree. Like, I mean, I don't even know if I'm dreaming as big to say I want to be like Oprah, but I would like to be somebody known as opening doors and making things easier for performers. Great. Like here in Canada, our union, which is related to SAG, like so similar purposes in terms of a union that represents performers. So I belong to ACTRA, but in addition to just being a member, like I also serve as a counselor. I also used to serve for many years as their co-chair of their diversity and inclusion committee and things like that. There's just so many aspects of the industry that are really moving in a great positive direction. Like we're seeing so much more positive representation and things like that. And all of that doesn't happen by accident. You know what I mean? Like all of that happens with people being like, hey, can we examine this over here and maybe fix this or add a policy here? Like it just doesn't happen by people opening their hearts, because people don't tend to do that without a little prodding. I'd like to think that some of the volunteer work that I do, serving on Actor Council and the years that I spent on the committee, I'd love to think that my work as a performer has also opened doors for other performers to do cooler, better things, have more opportunities than even I have now. I'd like to think that it gets better from here and not worse.
Absolutely. And if you could say anything to your followers, what would you want to tell them?
First of all, watch A Sisterly Christmas. I'm super proud of it. Super, super proud of it. If you can't watch it when it premieres tomorrow, December 7th at 9 p.m., it's on again December 11th and on Christmas Day. So if your family is the type to like watch Christmas movies on Christmas Day, this is on right at 6 p.m. I'd love for folks to check it out. I'm proud of it because it's a fun movie, super fun. Everyone involved was super great to work with. And it's my first lead. I'm really, 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 really proud of that. I think it's significant that, like I said, it's a Christmas movie that's starring two women, which is rare. Like it's a family-oriented storyline. Two Black women is rare. Even two women who aren't like super skinny. Like it sounds silly, but honestly, like lead roles usually go to like tall, super slim women. So like I like that. I feel like we are, we're fly, as well in our own right, but like we're relatable. The story is relatable, I think. And it's on OWN. I'm really excited about it. So I would love for folks who follow me, if you are interested in me at all, then I hope that you check out that, because right now it's the biggest piece of work that I'm so incredibly proud of.
Love that. So as we come to a close here, if you had a friend of yours and they feel called to act, they've done a few shows, small parts, but they just know this is what they're supposed to do with the rest of their life, what advice would you give that specific person to kind of help guide them the next few years?
I would definitely tell them to make connections in the industry by keeping up with classes when you can and when you can afford to, and not just for the obvious reasons of sharpening and your craft, which is the obvious reason of taking a class, but also to meet other actors, because other actors are also other filmmakers. What I have learned, one of the other great roles that I had the opportunity to do was in a series called Band Ladies, and that was my first series regular role, and I was cast in there not by audition but by the group of women who wrote and produced and created the show. I had acted with for 3 years at Second City. We just trained together. Wow. And even though this project that they created together was years later, they remembered me from working with me in that class and called me up and was like, hey, wow, we had this part that like totally has you in mind. And none of that would have come through to fruition, or at least not as easily as it did. Like it was a role I didn't have to audition for, which never happens. And,
like and it all, network.
I would say take classes. And even aside from taking classes, there's so many with the social media now, there's so many ways to, and groups, even outside of structured organizations like ACTRA and stuff. You definitely, if you're not involved in the union, there's still like groups of people who are like-minded, who are also creative, who are making work. Just stay connected, because there can be so much downtime between jobs. If you only wait for the agent's phone to ring, like it's gonna ring few and far between. Like you really have to stay top of mind in your whole community's mind. Like everyone around you should know who you are. You don't have to be famous, but everyone in your city should know who you are, just because you are present and you show up. You show up to support other people's things as well, other people's plays, other people's works, other people's panels. Just show up, be a part of the community, and the community will be there for you and possibly give you a job.
I mean, that's how this show got started, because it actually got started in 2020 as and it's gonna sound funny, but it was just a country music interview show, because that's where that was our network. A lot of our networks was country music in Nashville. That was kind of where our connections were. And so that's where we started. And we never imagined the evolution of it to be a full entertainment interview show. We have actors and artists and authors and athletes and all that, everybody in entertainment. And COVID kind of changed. We kind of pivoted last year, because all of a sudden COVID was happening, and August we did a ton of artist interviews, but then by September it was getting harder to book because people were getting gigs again. And I was like, well, how am I going to fill those spots in? So I was like, you know what? I wonder if the acting world would take us in the way the music world has. And all of a sudden we reached out, and the very first actor that we really had on the show ended up being Ed Asner.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I mean, and then everything blossomed from there. So we just never imagined the show getting to where it is today and blossoming. But again, it was connections that started on. It's connections that's keeping us going.
That's right. And honestly, like I'm having a good time. Like I said, I could only work with, or not could only, but I prefer to only work with people that I could love, even on a business level. And I could definitely love you too. So even if I become this next Oprah Winfrey, you can always call me back. And I'll always interview here. This was really, really great and a good time.
Love
we
that. So
enjoyed
tell
it as
everybody
well.
how they can find you.
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm always on the gram, probably too much so. But I'm Lisa Michelle on Instagram. I'm on IMDb. That's where, you can see all the fun projects that I have the pleasure of being a part of. And that's basically it.
And love that. We really enjoyed having you on today, and we definitely look forward to having you back down the road.
Yes. Thank you. Have a great
You're always
day.
welcome.
Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Bye.